Hi everybody, Todd Martin here. This is lesson number 7 of the Tai Chi Yang Style 24 form. We're going to be going through Single Whip. Single Whip is going to follow what we did in our previous lesson, which was grasp the sparrow's tail. In these lessons, I'm really going to be showing you exactly how to move the core to perform the techniques correctly. And then at the end, I'm going to show you how the specific core patterns of movement that we're using in Single Whip are going to be utilized in your daily life, like walking, climbing stairs, and things like that. By doing this, you're going to be able to translate your Tai Chi practice into your daily routine to help improve your balance in the real world, improve your alignment, and improve your confidence. Before we get started, go ahead and click the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber. Let's go ahead and get started. In the previous lesson, we did grasp the sparrow's tail. We began with grasp the sparrow's tail left, we pivoted, and then did grasp the sparrow's tail right. And this is where we're going to begin Single Whip. So that is Single Whip. Now let me demonstrate explaining the core movements with each part of the sequence. I'm going to explain the rotation of the upper waist, lower waist, and the action of the hips. Now I'm going to generally say torsional rotation when I'm talking about the upper waist turning in the opposite direction from the lower waist. So torsion on the left would be upper waist turning clockwise, lower waist turning counterclockwise. Torsion on the right would be the opposite. Or concordant rotation, which will be the upper and lower waist turning together clockwise or turning together counterclockwise. So in the beginning of Single Whip, we're going to begin at the end of grasp the sparrow's tail in push. I have extension of the left hip, torsion on the left. I'm going to sink back with flexion of the right hip, continuing torsion on the left. The palms are going to drop to the flat position. Now I'm going to turn around by extending my right hip and using counterclockwise concordant rotation of the waist. Now I'm going to sink back to the right leg by extending my left hip, extending it this way, and having torsional rotation on the right. So I'm going to be reaching forward with the right arm and turning back with the lower abs on the right as I push the weight back. And this is going to cause the palm to fold into this crane's beak because I have the energy of the upper waist turning against the extending hip. This is the core energy of pluck. And what you'll see in pluck in different areas of the form is it causes the hand to fold into either a beak or into a fist. In this case, it's going to fold into a beak as I turn against the extending hip. Now I have my root on the right leg, turning to the left with the upper waist, and I'm going to flex the left hip and turn the upper waist to the right. And now I'm going to end up in empty stance, which is going to be elbow strike, concordant clockwise rotation of the waist, and flexion of the left hip. Then we're going to do pluck again by extending the left hip and rotating the upper waist to the left. That's going to be pluck, and it's going to cause the hand to push out like that. This is the same energy you would do if you were kickboxing and doing a jab. Extension of the hip with torsion on the opposite side. That causes a jab with the fist. In this case, we're really getting a jab with the crane's beak. Like that. Then we're going to step out onto the heel using press, torsion on the left, flexion of the left hip. I'm going to shift forward using split, flexion of the right hip with torsion on the left. Same movement that we did when we were doing parting the wild horse's mane, but we're starting from this position, and so we're going to just shift forward. At the end of the motion, when the flat of the foot hits the ground, I'm going to extend the right hip, turning split into pluck. And that's going to cause the palm to turn from in to out. It's a very subtle movement, but it's one of those movements that helps you distinguish between flexion of the hip and extension of the hip. Flexion of the hip, pulling you forward, then extension of the hip to do the final turnout of the palm. That movement here, as we're shifting forward, is the same movement that we do when we are walking on level ground. I'll back up here. We are using split when we walk on level ground during the time when the forefoot is coming down to the ground. Same thing that we're doing here. The only difference is at the end of the motion, when we are walking, we're going to use our hip flexors and pull the body forward into a normal step. In the case of single whip, at the end of that motion, we're going to extend the rear hip, and that's what you're going to get from it. So that movement at the end is pluck. I already showed you a couple other versions of pluck during the technique. We used pluck right here, forming the crane's beak, and then we used pluck to push out or punch out with the crane's beak. So where else do we use pluck in normal walking? One of the places which is kind of fascinating would be in power walking. You know, the type of walking where the elbows are flexed and you have your hands balled in a fist, that we call that power walking. That is being created by the pluck energy. It's the same energy that is causing the fist to ball up like this. It's not an artificial motion to have your fists in a ball when you're power walking. It's also not artificial for the elbows to be bent, because in power walking using pluck, what we're doing is as we change weight, we're extending the rear hip with torsion on the opposite side. So I'm extending my right hip with torsion on the left. That motion causes the elbow to bend and starts to cause the hand to curl up. It's the same motion that I did here, just in the opposite direction. Then we are going to lift forward like we do in a normal step, and then we're going to do pluck again, and that's going to bring the other hand up and fold it into a fist while flexing the elbow. So after you've taken a couple steps in this technique, both arms will be flexed at the elbow and both hands will be curled into a fist because of the pluck energy. Now, if you're not a power walker, you will see pluck when you are walking upstairs. When we walk upstairs, we place the foot on the step using push, then we transfer the initial weight to the step using shoulder strike by tucking the pelvis, and then we begin to rise using pluck. You'll notice how after that initial shift, place on the stair, shift forward using shoulder strike, as I turn the upper waist forward on the left, can you see how the body starts to rise naturally with that rotation? As I bring it back, the weight sinks down. As I rotate, the body begins to lift. That's pluck. Extending that rear hip with torsion on this side, that's what's going to cause you to begin to lift up the stair. At the end of the pluck motion, you're going to extend your left hip and turn pluck into push, and that gets you all the way up the step. Then you can press to lift forward in a normal step if you are on the top step. So that is how pluck is used when we are walking upstairs. And it's really critical to know that, because when we don't understand that energy, when we're trying to push off incorrectly, it makes us start to bend over to try to push the weight up. And you'll see this in a lot of walking technique videos on YouTube, trying to explain to people how to prevent getting knee pain. They talk about bending forward so you can get your center of mass over your knee, and then you can push up like this. But I think most people know that you're not supposed to walk, whether you're on stairs or on flat ground, bent over like this. Yet you'll see that instruction over and over again on YouTube because they don't understand the energy of pluck, which is what begins the body to rise vertically with good posture, then transitioning to push. And that gets you up the stair with no bending over and with your knee properly aligned over the ankle. So it's really important to understand these core patterns of movement in your everyday life. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to click the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber, and I'll see you in the next one where we're going to go over cloud hands.